It's way too early, but we are doing a 2024 Superflex mock draft anyway, today on the Football Guys College Football Show.
Welcome to the College Football Show here at Football Guys. We're going to be diving into the 24 class, and there's no one better to do it. To be honest with you guys, we've been diving into this class for a very long time. We've been watching these guys as far as Debbie goes and just college football analysis and everything there. And we can talk to you guys. We're going to talk to you guys right now about strengths, weaknesses, and compared to the 23 class. And especially for Dynasty, it's super important to understand not putting players to picks, but understanding where the strengths and weaknesses are so that you can kind of maneuver in your leagues. If you're a contender, what are you hoping for next year as the class goes? So let's dive into the strengths. Christian, what do you say the best strength of this class is?
Oh man, see, that's tough for me because I think there's clearly a one-on-one in Caleb Williams. I don't know if that's the pick here in the mock, but to me, there's clearly a one-on-one. So the quarterback position automatically gets propped up. After that, I do think this wide receiver class is a lot stronger, but there are still question marks about it, right? I think, there is one clear tier one of wide receivers, and there's a player on his own in that tier. But I do think that there are a ton of guys that could step into that second tier of wide receivers. I think wide receivers kind of fill out the back of the first round, or maybe even the top half of the first round as we get into 2024. There are a lot of taller, bigger guys, which we didn't really get in 2023, and a lot of guys that just win in different ways. So I think definitely quarterback, but wide receivers look like the strongest position next year.
What do you think, Jeff?
Well, yeah, I think it's exciting anytime that you have two elite assets. And really, when we said at this time last year, the 2023 class, for all the hype that was surrounding that was really when you're acquiring those first round picks was trying to buy tickets for Bijan Robinson. We said last year that's Bijan Robinson was the crown jewel. There were some questions about the quarterbacks, about the upside around some of the quarterbacks, and then those kind of manifested. We saw Anthony Richardson get accelerated to the top, that number 2 position in a lot of drafts, and just the overall tools there. But this one there are two jewels at the very top with Caleb Williams and with Marvin Harrison Jr. Drake May is not that far behind, but Drake May, I think, is going to be in a difficult situation. He is in a situation, I think, that he could be set up to lose some value with Phil Longo leaving that offense there in North Carolina with the loss of Josh Downs and some of the questions that are around the skill talent around there. So I think that it's a class that there are two clear options at the top. There's a lot of questions with this class, and we are a year out, and that's natural. But again, a guy like, we'll get into it, Brock Bowers of a tight end, like there's questions around him, what he could be in transitioning. But I do think that Christian made a good point on talking about a lot of bigger wide receivers. And so I think what we saw manifest in the 2023 draft was the addition of multiple tight ends into offenses. And obviously behind me, I'm a Bills fan, they took Dalton Kincaid to add an extra tight end. Well, along with that, if you're going to play more 12 personnel, you're going to be moving away from the smaller slot wide receivers, and you're going to be wanting those big boundary wide receivers again. And so those guys are going to be in this class, guys that can play outside, that can win outside. And so we might see continued acceleration into that 12 personnel that's kind of already happening across the NFL.
And I will say this, and I think you're exactly right there. I think the biggest question mark we talked about a little bit pre-show, the running back class. I think this class really is determined by the strengths of that. If these running backs kind of bounce back, a couple of them, or a couple of them kind of solidify their production, and you like that, I think it's going to increase the value of this class as a whole. But if they struggle, you're looking at another running back class that might disappoint managers out there, right? And I think this last class definitely did. I thought it was value, and it was there, but then, okay, now wait, where does this running back class come from? Where are these top guys? And so, yeah, and I do think the wide receiver position is there, but there's a lot of question marks after the second one, out of wide receiver 2 as we dive into it. Overall, I think it's good to kind of do these things, get your idea of these names, especially if you don't really watch college football, which we understand, but to understand where the value's at, and maybe if you have a late first and you really need a running back on your team, either you're veteran and you want to go get it, you're a contender, maybe that is the move to a veteran. Go get a guy that we can think of in the dynasty market. Not now, but as we get closer to the season. So let's dive in. Let's get this mock going, and let's kind of go through. We're going to go through 2 rounds to give you a little analysis on the picks, and we're going to go through it. Jeff got the first pick somehow. I don't know how this happened. So Jeff, who you taking at the 101?
So before we start, I do want to mention we are in the heart of 2023 draft season, and don't forget to check out the Football Guys Rookie Guide. That will get you ready for your 2023 drafts. You can find it on the website, Football Guys Rookie Guide. So make sure to check that out, and we'll always be here to help you steer you through your rookie drafts if you've not done those yet. But more to it, the number one pick in this draft, I'm going to take Caleb Williams. I think that's pretty obvious. The quarterback, this is a super flex draft, quarterback from USC, reigning Heisman Trophy winner, all the hub and the hype around him. And we've already got whispers that maybe teams are ready to tank for Caleb Williams a year out. And just, I think it's the entire package. And we mentioned, Christian's gone into it a lot with the scheme versatility, with his ability to throw off platform, his creativity that he comes to the position. I mean, this guy is, as teams are searching for the next Patrick Mahomes, I mean, you're going to hear it a lot over the next year that this guy could be the next Patrick Mahomes. And so I think it's a pretty obvious selection, easy pick here at the 101.
This is Christian's guy. I'll let Christian go. You have anything with this, Christian?
Yeah. I mean, I think he's the best quarterback prospect since Andrew Luck. I think he's going to surpass what Trevor Lawrence was in a lot of people's minds. I think you could make a case that if he refines some of the in-pocket stuff and maybe speeds up his processing just a touch, I think you could talk about him as an equal to Andrew Luck prospect, which sounds crazy on paper, but when you watch him play, it's literally watching a mini Mahomes, and that level of quarterback elevates the players around him to a crazy level. Now, I know if you're doing your 23 drafts and you see, well, Jordan Addison really didn't have a productive year with him, that's because everyone else on USC was also productive. So, just a guy that it would be correct to tank for him. I think, there will be questions about the Cardinals and what they do with Kyler Murray, if they are as bad as they look on paper, because they should take Caleb Williams. Whoever ends up with the first overall pick should take him, and that means you should also probably take him in your rookie drafts in 2024.
Yeah, and USC is going to be better this year offensively. Better than they were last year, and he won the Heisman. Like, when you're looking at what they've gotten, Dorian Singer coming over for Arizona. Zachariah Branch might be the best freshman wide receiver in the country. Mekhi Lemon is really good. I know Christian, me and him like him a lot. Mario Williams is good if he doesn't transfer. Brendan Rice. Hey, Brendan Rice stepped up last year. If you don't know who that is, you should know who the Rice family is. Maybe if you haven't been watching football and you're trying to go after Jeff on social media. But yeah, when you have that, Austin Jones, Marshawn Lloyd, really good offense. Like, and Caleb's that guy. He's the 101 in Superflex. And really, to me, you're tanking. If you have a top pick, you're looking to get two guys in this draft, and legitimately, like, you'd be excited about those guys. So Caleb Williams is the first guy, and then when you come in at 102, I had the next pick. It's Marvin Harrison Jr. And it pains me as a Michigan fan to admit that Marvin Harrison Jr. is the best wide receiver in college football. He was the best wide receiver last year in college football. He got screwed in the Blitnikoff Award. He should have been that. He's the safest option of all these guys. Like, he is probably locked in top 10 draft capital, right, guys? Like, I feel like it would shock me. It would have to take something, astronomical for him not to be a top 10 pick next year. Number one receiver in the country, really good ball skills, really good hands. I think the scary part about him is I think that he's not maybe done progressing as a wide receiver. He put on a lot of weight from his freshman to sophomore year, and he's with the best, wide receivers coach / OC in the country, and Brian Harline. Like, Harrison could get better. And if he plays his full junior year, which, part of me hopes, maybe just sit it out, Harrison. You're going to be a top 10 pick. You don't need to play. But if he does play that whole senior year, or junior year, like, realistically, he could come in maybe as the wide receiver 3 or 4 in Dynasty, like Bijan did as the running back 1 now in Dynasty. So that's what you're looking at with both of these guys in this mindset. Yeah. Jeff, you got anything with Ohio State? Or
Well, I mean, there's the chance that he's going to be playing with his high school quarterback as well. So, you see Ohio State losing C.J. Stroud. Kyle McCord might win that quarterback job, and, they played high school football together. So I think you have a situation where I've already got it down that I put some money on Marvin Harrison Jr. winning the Heisman Trophy next year, which might sound crazy as a wide receiver, but, certainly we've seen a wide receiver win that a couple of years ago with Devonta Smith. And so it could be a situation where they just really, really force feed him the ball. And as Kyle McCord comes in and develops, or if it's Devin Brown, whichever quarterback it is for Ohio State.
Yeah. These two players that we've discussed are the two players that have a chance to be deemed generational and people not roll their eyes at it. I think Marvin Harrison Jr. is honestly already in the Jamar Chase tier. And if we talk about what happened with Jamar Chase, he sat out that last year. Like you said, Kevin, if Harrison plays this year and he gets better, I think you're looking at a probably top 3 to 5 pick in the NFL draft and a franchise changing type of wide receiver.
100%.
All right. I have the 103 since I'm the last one left, and I went ahead and I took Drake May, the quarterback from North Carolina. Honestly, this is a little rich for me because I think there's a chance that Drake May is being overhyped a bit right now. On the other side of things, what he did in his first year of starting at North Carolina last year was fantastic. Really high football IQ, big arm, can make all the throws. There are some things with his mechanics that really scare me, especially when we talk about what happened to Sam Howell and how we viewed Sam Howell ahead of his final season at North Carolina. The lack of, or the absence of Phil Longo might end up being a good thing. I'd like to see them kind of progress and do some more actual NFL style stuff. But, I think right now he's viewed as in contention with Caleb Williams as the first overall pick next year. And when you start to listen to like draft analysts and things like that, you start to feel pretty comfortable taking Drake May in the top 3 to 5 in superflex leagues. So he also adds a ton rushing wise. That's one thing that doesn't get discussed enough, but he had almost, I think, 700 yards on the ground last year. So I think a guy that can come in and probably be a top 20 dynasty quarterback immediately as a rookie, assuming that he does declare next year.
Yeah, go ahead, Jeff.
Well, no, I think Christian covered that well, and I think that's important to illustrate the points on, because we've seen this traditionally where a quarterback comes in and everybody has the expectations of the world on top of them, and maybe they don't have the absolute best year, maybe they just have a good year, but you're looking at them under the microscope. I think this happened to CJ Stroud last year, where everybody had sky high expectations on him, and he fell short, I think, of delivering on those expectations. And certainly that Georgia game was great, but then at the end of the day, he still went second overall in the NFL draft.
Well, I do want to point out, of this class, though, these are the 2 quarterbacks I think are for sure first rounders in Superflex next year. That's it for sure. Right now, when we're looking at this class, there's so many question marks after this. And I think really realistically, these are the top. This is a tier right here. These 3. Now we might, with Jeff's next pick, we can argue about that. But you're looking at these 3 guys, you're excited about having these 3 guys at the top. So if you're trading for those picks, if it's early picks, this is where what people think. And I think there's another thing too, game theory a little bit. People think they can get Caleb Williams, Marvin Harrison right now. If they trade a pick, this is the mindset of dynasty managers. Oh, I'm going to tank, get these guys, or I'm going to go, trade this pick, and it's going to be an early first. Of course it is. Right now, that's how, and you can use that to your advantage too. If your team is good, and maybe guys see that they think it's fake or whatever the case may be, you can use that to your advantage and go get some real assets if they think they can get one of these 3 guys. And we have seen some of these guys drop off before. So there is ways to kind of manipulate your league mates a little bit. Some guys just love picks and rebuilding all the time. And that is a way also to say, hey, you want Marvin, come get it. And then you can kind of build a contender. All right, Jeff, 104, where you at?
104, I took Brock Bowers. Brock Bowers, tight end from Georgia. We've seen Georgia, the defensive players, dot the top of the NFL draft over the last couple of years, but we know that Georgia has been explosive on the offensive side as well, and a lot of that is run through Brock Bowers, a tight end. He came in as a true freshman in the SEC, scoring 13 touchdowns his first year. This past year, his sophomore year, was just shy of 1,000 yards, and really a lot of that offense is run around power run game, 12 formation, 2 tight end sets. We're using Brock Bowers throughout formation, moving him around and him serving as the primary receiver on that offense. And so anytime you see that, can bring that into the NFL level. If you have the ability to serve as a primary receiver at the NFL level, you're just going to be a killer for fantasy. Now, the big question will be, can he actually do that at the NFL level? Because I think his body type is a little bit out there. It's he's I don't remember what the last measurements were on him. I believe isn't he like a 6'2", 235 type guy?
240 ish.
Yeah.
Supposed to be 6'4". I don't know if he's quite that.
Yeah, because we've seen some embellishment in measurements in the past, but that's kind of where it is. But at the same time, you see Dalton Kincaid go in the first round of Buffalo, and clearly they have said they're going to use him as a slot, and I think that could be a situation to monitor as Kincaid develops in the NFL, and if he makes a big splash as a rookie, that could be really big for Brock Bowers. And another player I think to watch on potentially Bowers' impact, A guy I like, Isaiah Likely. You guys bust me all the time on Isaiah Likely, but landing with Todd Monken in Baltimore's offense, and we know that they drafted Zay Flowers, obviously, but I think they can be primed to use a lot of 12 formation and do some of the same things that Monken did with Bowers with Likely over there in Baltimore, because I think that there's some similarities in between their games. But those are two guys to watch that if they perform well, I think you can see teams be a lot more comfortable with taking Bowers and taking him early. And that will be a thing to watch. But again, he's just a very explosive athlete out of the tight end position, has been productive since day one, and a position that is typically struggled for early production. And then, being at Georgia in the SEC too.
I hated this pick. I'm just gonna be honest with you. Like, I think it's way too early.
Too early?
Brock. I have way too many questions with his size. I think a reason why maybe I don't. That was harsh. I just shouldn't say I hated the pick, but I really struggle with tight ends right now, especially so Laporta was not getting talked about, right? Like I had to literally message Sleeper and say, can you please put Laporta in these rookie mocks? I've been doing them since January, and I'd like to draft him in the 4th round. And then he gets 2nd round draft capital because he's tied in 2 over Michael Mayer, who we probably last year this time would have maybe put Mayer at 104, 105, 106, right? Like, and I just think I think there's more questions to be had about Bowers. Like, I think that there's some things like we like him now because of his breakout. And he has performed really well. But maybe something's about Georgia's offense too. Maybe they just didn't, they don't really have the wide receivers that they've needed. And maybe Bowers benefited from that. That's why he got the targets, right? Like I do think that when we're looking at Bowers, I think there's some things to be had with tight ends. And I just don't like tight ends either. Like, let's be honest. I'm just not going to draft it. And if the running backs do well in this class, Bowers will get dropped down, and we're talking about Kincaid status. I'm totally okay with that. Just top 5 probably is too rich for me.
And well, to make you feel better, Jeff.
Strays.
Yeah, poor lad McConkey. I like this pick, Jeff. I think when Brock Bowers enters the NFL, assuming that the NFL deems his size to be okay, I think you're looking at probably a top 10 perennial tight end guy, just with his pass catching skill set. Now, maybe his size is a problem, and maybe that makes him fall a little bit. But I also wouldn't be shocked if he steps right in and he's one of those rare rookies that produces because of how skilled he is as a pass catcher. We talk about like big slot stuff. I think that he's perfect for that role. And like Jeff keeps saying, I think a lot of teams are moving that way. So I understand the pick. I also understand the hesitancy because you said 240. I'm pretty sure Georgia lists him at 230. So he's going to need to eat a lot of cupcakes before the combine next year.
Yeah. All right. Let me jump over to mine. Oh, wait. Is it my pick or your pick?
It's your pick. Sorry.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Don't you jump at me. All right. Emeka Egbuka from Ohio. I'm just going to take every Ohio State wide receiver. That's pretty much like what you should do. When you're looking at him, Emeka's a weird one for me. Like I was a little bit, worried about what he was going to be coming in last year, but he's kind of like just safe. Like when you're looking at his profile and what he is, like he's a very safe pick in terms of like what his ceiling can be. He's going to be a slot guy. So I have when he comes in, what do you think of that in terms of like fantasy purposes? A good short area quickness. I think he's really explosive, very consistent receiver. Hey, and we've seen these guys, Olave, like, when you're looking at what they do, they produce in the NFL, they get open, they earn targets. That's what you like about him. Like, and he's pretty safe bet in terms of like the wide receiver 2 of the class. Like, and statistically or analytically from PFF and whatever you think of PFF, he's one of the higher graded receivers of the class in college football in terms of what he was able to accomplish last year. And I thought at times like he kind of elevated that wide receiver room when they needed somebody. They went to Emeka and he he earned targets and he made catches over the middle. And so for me right now, he probably slides in as my wide receiver 2, and kind of his own tier ish. Marvin above him, and then you have Emeka there. And that's kind of how I look at these wide receiver class, but he's a safe pick. Not a high ceiling, not a fun, sexy pick, but to me, he's a safe pick.
He can win outside. He can play outside. And I think I do believe he can. It's funny because it's hard as you're watching them with him and Marvin Harrison Jr. You see Marvin Harrison Jr. and then you see Emeka Egbuka, and he's not Marvin Harrison Jr. And so it's like almost you're holding a finer microscope to Egbuka because you're seeing what else is being done on the field. And so I think it's one of those things of like, I have some questions about his natural receiving ability, but that could only just be through the monitor of seeing Marvin Harrison Jr. out there and comparing it to that and grading him on just an insane curve. But I agree. I think this is a good pick, and I think that he's the number 2 wide receiver, and I think that I don't have any concerns about him getting through to the NFL. I mean, we know that they love Ohio State wide receivers, and I think he's a better athlete than Jackson Smith-Njigba, and Jackson Smith-Njigba was a better athlete than was kind of expected.
Yeah, I think he's big enough to win outside, but I think your best bet is to toss him in the slot. So kind of a mix of both of yours. But I do, you mentioned, watching him under a closer microscope. I think he's good at a lot of things. I haven't seen anything great about his profile other than the athleticism, but I also think this is the perfect opportunity to show that he does have great traits, whether it's he's worked on his route running or his release package or whatever it might be. I think this is going to be the year that kind of solidifies him inside that top or second tier, I guess, of players here. He's not my wide receiver 2, though. My wide receiver 2 is who I'm taking here at 106, and that's Xavier Worthy, the wide receiver from Texas.
Hot take.
I was just going to say, I think this is a hot take, but when I watch Xavier Worthy, I just see a guy that separates with, honestly, more ease than anyone in the class, including Marvin Harrison Jr. Now, he's obviously not as thickly built. That's not a word, thick. He's not a thick boy like Marvin Harrison Jr., but he is a guy that can use footwork at the top of his routes to win there. I think his releases are pretty good. He's a really, really skinny kid. I think he's listed in the 160s. He might be in the 170s now. I'm not entirely sure. I haven't seen their updated roster. But when you have a guy that can separate as well as he can and his ball tracking, when you combine those two things, I think you're looking at a first-round pick. I think it's going to be very similar to Devontae Smith, who, going into his final year, I think people talked about him as a probable first-rounder, and then he vaulted into the top 20, top 15, actually. I think Xavier Worthy is going to have a similar year, assuming that Quinn Ewers does improve a little bit this year.
I mean, I like Zay. I see he was injured last year, right? So like the case may be they talked about that was his drops, his shoulder, something going on there. Quinn was awful. So like when you're talking about like his quarterback play and everything there, yeah, Xavier could definitely jump Emeka in terms of like, value, because if he has a good year, he's his whip routes and things that he does in that field, they're fun to watch. Like they're pretty excited. So yeah, I can't fault you for Xavier. Emeka's the safer pick. Xavier's probably the riskier pick and value pick. That's kind of how I look at both those guys.
What do you guys think of AD Mitchell? Because I really like him a lot, and he's going to be in Texas. And do you think that there's any chance at all that he emerges as the number 1 wide receiver over Xavier Worthy at Texas?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think so.
But
he's a good player.
He is. Texas has a lot of good wide receivers.
Texas loaded wide receiver room. That's the problem.
I think we're going to find out what type of player Xavier Worthy is this year, though, because of that.
Yeah.
I think we're going to see, like, if he separates himself as the best guy there, then I think that's when he's getting that first-round discussion.
You know who the best wide receiver on that roster is Jonte Cook II. He's a freshman. Like, he's going to challenge Worthy. He's going to go up there and challenge him.
Yeah. He's really good. I love him.
He's pretty special. All right. What do you got, Jeff?
All right. So at the 107, I dip into the running back pool for the first time. I take Raheem Sanders, and this might not be a popular number 1 running back in the class, but I think when you look at the physicality and comparing him to some of the other backs in the class, I think he's one of the few guys with the size and the physicality to be a 3-down back in the class, in my opinion. I think some guys maybe can get there, but we've seen production out of him as a sophomore, 1,800 yards from scrimmage. So he's been very, very productive. I think he's got the size, the athleticism. I think he's a little bit clunky in the run style, runs a little bit upright, 6'2", 225. And so he's that bigger back. And so it's one of those that it reminds me a lot of DeMarco Murray when I watch him run, because I think there's similarities into their run styles there. But I take him first just because I think that he profiles a little bit better to be able to handle a larger load at the NFL level.
I can't. Can you get behind the running back 1 stuff, Christian? Because I can't do it with Raheem. I don't know what it is about it, and I'm not trying to crap on Jeff's picks here. But like,
I've been waiting the entire show to unleash this.
You've
been waiting 4 days for this moment. Right
the thing
now.
with,
I steal it from you.
It's not just you. Like Sanders is getting talked about as running back one in a lot of circles. Like a lot of people like him. I don't know how well he's gonna test. Like I don't know. Like he's good. Like he's solid, and I think his production speaks for itself. Like that. I worry about his long term like outlook concern like Dynasty and like what he's gonna test like. Like I think he does very well in that Arkansas system, and again he has that size, he has that frame like that. I just don't think he's. I don't see special. I see very solid. I just don't see special.
This goes back to the Ibuka versus Worthy thing to me, because I think the next running back that's about to come off the board is the riskier pick. But I also think the ceiling on this player who Jeff roots for every Saturday during college football season, and I can't believe he didn't take him.
I mean, I don't know. I feel like it's been a long time since I rooted for him.
That's fair. But that's part of his conversation. But I think that's the thing. I think Sanders is a safe pick. I think you're looking at guaranteed day 2 capital with him. Whereas, I think maybe some of these other backs have some question marks about them. So, but to answer your actual question, Kevin, I'm not there with Raheem, and he's not even my 2. But I'll get to that in a little bit.
Yeah, and I'm going to take the next guy. We'll talk about TreVeyon Henderson. One of those guys after his freshman year, many were talking about, hey, he could challenge Bijan as being the best running back in college football, and he just got injured. Like he had a foot injury, that lower body injury last year really knocked him out, and he showed flashes where he kind of popped out. I think it was a Penn State game. I think he had a 40-yard touchdown run. You're like, oh, Henderson's back, and then he's on the injured reserve list, and it just made Jeff very mad. So it made me happy. But when you're looking at it, like, he is one of the most explosive backs. And when you're looking at like in an era where there's not 3 down guys anymore, there's not a lot of 3 down backs anymore. We're seeing I don't know if we're seeing the decline of it or what does that look like. I really personally think TreVeyon Henderson can be a 3 down guy. Like he has natural receiving ability and he has natural run style and his size is there. Like he's a 3 down guy where I don't think Raheem Sanders has the catching ability to be like that PPR like guy that you're taking in those leagues and you expect those fantasy points from. I think TreVeyon can be that 3 down guy. He's explosive, checks all the boxes that way. He just got to stay healthy, but I don't think you can move. I see guys all the time talk about like, using health against people. I don't understand how that can be with a running back that it was just his leg. Like he just got that roll up and it was just one of those things that lower body injury couldn't do it. Henderson is special to me. Like I still think he's getting slept on a little bit. And all it's going to take is 2 games where he has like 200 yards and everybody's like, oh, Henderson. Yeah, he's one of the best backs in the country. And the Mayan Williams thing doesn't scare me anymore. Mayan Williams went back to school because he didn't get the draft grade that he wanted. And that tells you everything you need to know about the NFL. I don't think he's any in the stratosphere of TreVeyon Henderson in terms of talent, in my opinion. Like, I think he's a back that's fine. He's going to plug in there. But Henderson to me is one of the most talented backs if he can put it all together this year and stay on the field.
A lot of ifs there. A lot of ifs.
I know, but that's what we're doing here. I mean, but there's upside there. I mean, you cannot tell me.
There's certainly upside.
As a freshman, he was one of the best backs in the Big Ten.
He was. I think
was the best back. He was. Go ahead. Yeah. I'm sorry.
He shied from contact a little bit, but I don't know, nitpicking again. But no, I mean, his injury, more so than Jackson Smith and Jigba's injury, his injury cost Ohio State the national championship last year.
Yeah.
Because if he's on the field, then they beat Georgia and they certainly beat TCU. But it's going to just question of availability, like be available. And the thing of it too is he had a massive game against Tulsa his freshman year, and then the rest of the year, yeah, he was productive and he showed flashes, but it was like one of those that he just never took over a game despite the amount of talent. And certainly you're asking for a lot for an 18, 19-year-old kid as a true freshman to actually take over a game. And outside of the Tulsa game, I don't know that he ever got there really his freshman year. And then last year he was just injured and he just was never on there. So I completely agree with everything that you say. I think that the upside is there for sure. The utility in the passing game is there and the explosion is there. It's just that show it. Let's see it because I don't know that we've consistently seen it at the college level.
That's fair.
Yep. I'm going to take another running back here. 109, Trey Benson, the running back from Florida State. This is a guy that you're going to start to hear about a lot over the next few months, but probably as we get into the season. He's a transfer from Oregon. He played there for his first couple of years. He's technically a redshirt sophomore still, 6'1", 215, but a big back. He has the NFL size. All 3 of these backs that we've talked about have very clear NFL size. Benson, when I watch him, though, he runs like he's 200. He's very light on his feet, really good vision. We talk about the ability to be a 3-down back. Benson flashed a ton of really good stuff as a receiver as well. Great contact balance. Reportedly runs a sub 4.5. I haven't quite seen that type of long speed on film just yet, but I would like to see what he tests, because if he goes out there as a 215, 220 pound back and runs in the 4.4s, I think you're looking at a guy that is going to get draft capital and is going to help this running back class and help the overall class because of the strength of the running backs at that point.
This is spicy. This is spicy, Christian. He's here. But you're right. I think Trey Benson's a very good runner. Like, and when you watch him, like, I think that if he takes that next step, he's gonna be a first round in superflex mocks. Like, if he takes that next step there, and this is a guy that was going undrafted in these type of things like 4 months ago and stuff. But he did take that next step at Florida State, like you mentioned. Like, I like it. I think he fits a lot of the tools and boxes, checks a lot of the boxes for the NFL.
Fun pick. I always appreciate Christian's ability, like, one, his scouting ability, because he's usually right, and two, his willingness to just go against the grain. And so I appreciate that a lot, Christian. But
Thank you.
My pick is going to be Will Shipley at the 110, and apparently everybody's just out on Will Shipley. But I think that when you look at the offensive situation in Clemson last year, I mean, they were an 11-3 team, and without Will Shipley, I don't know if they're a 500 team, because he saved that offense multiple times. I think that when you look at his projection to the NFL level, he might be a little bit smaller than what you'd like to see, but I think that he's certainly going to have utility in the passing game, and he has the explosion to make big plays as well. And so coming into Clemson with Cade Klubnik taking over at quarterback, and obviously bringing in, what's his first name?
Garrett Riley.
Garrett Riley's coming in as the offensive coordinator there, bringing that TCU system in. I think that it's just, you're going to get so much production out of Clemson this year, and I think that they're going to be a big story that's going to be talked about in the ACC with Klubnik, with Shipley, and I think that Shipley is set up, as much as people are starting to fade him, that feels like fatigue, to be honest with you, a little bit there, because I think that this is a player that we were very excited about coming in as a freshman, and then we saw what we wanted to see last year. And so I think that it's there. And anytime you got a player that has utility in the passing game, that's going to naturally boost them, one, in fantasy production, but two, within the eyes of the NFL. And so I don't have particular concerns about Shipley's value in any sort of PPR format. So, and then I did Marvin Harrison Jr. I splashed a little bit on him for Heisman. Cade Klubnik is a fun Heisman Trophy bet too right now. So that's just a bonus.
No, I think you're right about Riley. Kendrick Miller had almost 1,400 yards rushing last year. And then even Amari DeMarcado over there, the backup running back, Maffa and Shipley are going to be that same kind of duo. And the biggest question mark I have for Clemson is their offensive line. Their offensive line is not very good, and Daba will not go to the portal and address the offensive line. So they're gonna struggle a little bit with theirs. So if Riley can get the most out of that, yeah, Shipley to me is a fantasy asset. Like, the reason why when I have him ranks is, like, PPR wise, he is one of the best pass catchers in this class. Probably some guy we're gonna talk about later, maybe a little bit better. But yeah, he's just a solid prospect. Like, and he pretty safe floor from a fantasy perspective if he gets day two. I just think people question his long speed. I think that he gets caught a lot from behind. I think the speed thing is kind of where people are at with him.
Nobody in the NFL is long speed.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's the most overrated thing with running backs. Obviously, it's a bonus. That's why Travion Henderson is, as high in my rankings as he is. But, we've seen guys like Tyler Algier. He didn't really have long speed. He was relevant for a year before Bijan got there. Damian Pierce doesn't have long speed. That doesn't matter. He's the lead back in Houston. I think you can win that way at the NFL level.
All right. I'm going to go jump over to the 111. I took a kid. Yeah, I probably should have took my guy, but I took Malik Neighbors. So I took an LSU wide receiver here. When last year everybody expected Keyshawn Boutte to kind of take over, and it really wasn't him. It was Neighbors. He kind of took out. He broke out, 72 receptions, 1,000 yards, only 3 touchdowns, and he made Jaden Daniels look pretty good. And Jaden Daniels missed him a ton. If you watch the film and the tape, Malik Neighbors was open all over that field, and Jaden Daniels just can't throw it to him. And there was just, he overthrew him, underthrew him, everything to do. Neighbors can have that big breakout. I think he's one of the best deep threats in this class. Catch radius is really good. I think that he's a high upside guy, right? And we're talking about guys with size. Neighbors has that as well. LSU wide receivers have done pretty well in the league. When you're looking at just, we're not going to helmet scout, but we will a little bit. I think that overall, the athletic profile you really like, he could take that next step. Now, Neighbor's biggest thing, and I don't know what it is with LSU receivers, boys, it's off the field. Get your crap together, because he already kind of ran into some trouble in the offseason already. And like, that is his biggest question mark. Because I don't think as like a receiver, as a profile, everything stands up. If he can stay on the field, get his head right, and make sure he doesn't make any off the field mistakes, I think Neighbors can really shoot up boards here. In a wide receiver class that like, there's good players, but who's going to take that next step, elevate themselves? He could be the wide receiver 3 of the class, like that we're talking about.
I think you make a good point there right at the end, talking about good players, but people need to elevate themselves. And I think that, we started the show talking about the 2024 class and the valuation. And, there's been conversation that 2024 is better than 2023. But a lot of that is still contingent on players stepping up. And so I think a lot of people felt like the 2023 class, the rug got pulled under him because they were told that's going to be the class. It is important for people to realize, and we've gone through the last handful of players of all have major question marks. And so that's kind of where we're projecting the first round right now. And those players need to deliver. We didn't really get that last year from 2023. And so it's important that if you're going to mortgage the future for picks, it's important to realize that the narrative can change, and that's okay. It's part of the process. It's part of learning and understanding more about players.
Yeah. Just last note on Neighbors, Dame Brugler did his way too early 2024 first round mock draft, and Malik Neighbors was a first round pick. So I think the NFL is also in on this kid, and we'll see what his pre-draft process looks like and if he can stay out of trouble. And that's, like you said, the number one thing. This is the guy I think you wanted to take probably here at 112, Troy Franklin, the wide receiver from Oregon. This is another case of tall, but kind of skinny and probably too skinny, but also lightning fast. I think this is a kid that could potentially run sub 4.4 when we get to the combine. Just insane speed. He's got the ability to track the ball downfield. He's a really great deep threat, but he also flashed ability to be a possession receiver. He's a big body guy with a wide catch radius. He's got good route running. It's probably not spectacular at this point, but last year was kind of his first time with a full-time, role for Oregon, and he was Bo Nix's favorite target. I think that continues this year. I think if he runs sub 4.4, we're looking at a top 50 lock in the NFL draft. And so I'll take Troy Franklin here as a safe-ish back end of the first pick.
Troy just catches balls, man. Like, if you want like just a vibe check on Troy, he's a gamer. Like, and I know analysts gonna hate that. Like, he's just gonna go out there and he's gonna earn like 12 targets a game sometimes. Like, he's going to go out there and his catch radius is ridiculous. You want to see some fun catches, go watch that Washington film, go watch some of the stuff that he does. He's special there. I've been a high on Troy for a long time. I think he can be like a very solid asset in terms of like, and hey, Bo Nix and him had a very good connection last year, and Dante Thornton moved on. I know they added some transfers, but I think Franklin can definitely take that next step.
Oregon's going to be good, guys. Oregon's going to be really good.
Yeah, that the Pac-12 is loaded at quarterback, which is weird to say out loud, but they are really loaded at the quarterback position. So it's going to be there. Now, just to kind of wrap, to go over the first round real quick, when we're looking at there, we had three running backs taken. A lot of wide receivers though, right? So when we're looking at the wide receiver position, that's where we talked about that depth, and only 2 quarterbacks. So, and then Jeff threw a tight end there because that's just Jeff. So he likes his tight ends there. All right, let's go. We're gonna go through the second round here. Kind of just talk about some guys. And again, this is the other thing too. I wanted to note when we get in the second round, but like they've been talking about, guys, they have to step up. This class, everybody, is the COVID year class. So this is the class that like, and I've even listened to some pods that they have said that like, the 247 ratings and stuff, they're incomplete because a lot of these kids didn't play their senior year, or they played 3 games their senior year. So they are having a lot of question marks about some of these guys in this class, even from that perspective, like that scouts that usually use the 247 and go through and look at like their scouting profile and stuff. There's a lot of incompletes here. And so that is also something to note when we go to the second round. Some of these guys might pop off because there was incompletes in their profile. Maybe they haven't stepped up, and we've seen that. So that's something to note that a lot of scouting agencies have talked about as well, and guys just around the league, that like this is going to be one of the hardest years. So if your team has a really good scouting department, I think you're going to be ahead of the game in terms of like, knowing where these prospects are going to go in the draft. That's just something to note when we get into these guys. So Jeff, take it to 201.
So 201, we talk about a lot about what we do or don't know about guys. 201's a guy that I'm pretty comfortable about what we know about him, and that's going to be Braylon Allen. And as long as Braylon Allen has not switched to edge, that Braylon Allen is going to be a major part of a committee back. He's going to be, I think last year you rewind and you think about Brian Robinson going in round 3, or this year you see Roshan Johnson going in round 4 when he didn't have a ton of production. These players that are going to be parts of committees at the minimum. I think Allen will be he'll be a goal line back. He'll be an early down back. I think he's going to be if he's not day 2, he's going to be in the 4th round early. And I think that the team's going to see what they have because of the physical size and because he brings that package. It really stands out and pops off. And this is a guy, 240-pound guy that he didn't have the efficiency last year that he had his freshman year, but I think Wisconsin as a whole kind of struggled on offense last year relative to where they had been running. But again, a Wisconsin running back, we don't helmet scout, but a Wisconsin running back, I think those traditionally turn out pretty well, and a player that potentially go for 1,200 yards again for the 3rd year in a row.
What do you think of him, Christian?
I think his 2022 film was awful, but I also think his 2021 film was really good. So that's where I'm at with him, is I don't really know. 2022, he was a 4th round pick based on probably projecting his athleticism, just because I think the explosives are going to be there. His 2021 freshman film, when he was 17 years old, by the way, which you'll hear 1 million times as we get through this draft process with him, that he played in college football as a 17-year-old. That stuff was really good. So I'm intrigued this year, especially with the new regime in there with Luke Fickell. I think the quarterback play will be better. I think it will open up some running lanes for him, but he definitely needs a bounce back year. I think this is a guy that could push for middle of the 1st, though, if he does have that type of bounce back. So pretty wide range of outcomes.
Yeah. I have a hard. Braylon Allen's he's my running back 4 of the class right now. But I will say, new offensive system, less men in the box, could have a huge production year. Like, he could have one of those years you're like, oh my gosh, he's not running his 9-man, 8-man boxes anymore. Graham Mertz isn't back there. Wow, he just had all these runs. So there's something to note there. So I think you guys both hit it there. The 202, of course, I got to be a homer. I'm taking Donovan Edwards, Michigan running back here. I think for me, Edwards' value becomes his receiving profile. And you won't see in the numbers too much last year. He broke his hand. So he was out there playing with a broken hand, running all over Ohio State in that last game in the Big Ten. And you saw that. I think he has elite speed, long speed there. I think the question mark with him, and this is why he's going to fall into that 2nd round right now, is Blake Corum's coming back. And how much of that usage is he going to miss? Where I think there's something to know, and I think there's missing in his profile is inside runability. Is he a running back that can kind of withstand a 3-down guy in between the tackles? That's the biggest question mark. Can he handle that volume and workload in that offense? We're probably not going to see that. I don't know if Corum's going to be ready right away when he comes back from that injury, but that's the biggest missing thing in his profile. But overall, I like Edwards as that kind of explosive back, that receiving back.
Jeff, do you think he's going to run for 200 yards against Ohio State again this year?
Probably, because Ohio State's offense is trash, so I'm sure that they'll probably do that again. But
yeah, that's fair. Donovan Edwards reminds me of DeAndre Swift a bit. So take that however you want to, but that's that's the type of running back I see when I watch him. And I personally loved DeAndre Swift, so I like this pick. 203, I'm taking another tight end, Jatavian Sanders, tight end from Texas. Really got on the field for the first time in 2022, and despite Quinn Ewers being fairly bad and going down with injury and Hudson Card being in there, Sanders was ultra productive, over 600 yards, really good advanced metrics when you look at everything. And then from a film perspective, he was the number 1 athlete in the country in the 2021 recruiting class. There's a reason for that. You can see it on film. He's not even a refined route runner, and he still finds ways to get open. I think this is another guy that Dane Brugler projected as a 1st-round player in his 1st-round mock. So when we talk about this tight end class compared to this last one, the 2023 class still is very much so stronger. But I think there are opportunities for these guys to kind of vault into this early 2nd, middle of the 2nd type of range. And Sanders is my favorite pick to come out behind Bowers.
Dude's a freak. like athletic freak. Like that's where you're gonna see like he might go up the board just because of his athletic freak. He's just that guy. Like you watch him play. Tight ends are scary, like I've been mentioning, but he's a freak list guy. Like he's that good.
All right. So at the 204, this is just kind of a roll on upside. We've talked through the entire episode, the depth of wide receiver room in Texas. And so Quinn Ewers came in. Quinn Ewers was one of the highest rated high school recruits ever. And he came in Texas and he declared early. So he recategorized his class so that he could get into college early. And as you see his freshman year at Ohio State, you see physically he wasn't there. He shouldn't have been in college. He just physically wasn't developed enough. He's going to be in his second year now with Steve Sarkisian at Texas, going to be more developed, going to be on a more, the plane that he should be on, with a loaded receiver room, with an offense that's going to be changing a little bit with the departure of both Bijan Robinson and Roschon Johnson. So I think Quinn Ewers is positioned to really springboard up the class because he had that pedigree coming in. He has the talent and the weapons around him. And you're kind of getting in the point now where you're in the mid-second round with a super flex. You kind of roll the dice a little bit on a quarterback that could land much higher. And you're really looking for players that could be risers in the class as you get later through. And I think Quinn Ewers is set up to do that.
So the way I look at Quinn, you're right on all that. I love him at this price. I did not like him last year at the price he was at. So I'm all aboard the Quinn Ewers in this area because if he can hit, and he looked good until he got injured against that Alabama. They should have beat Alabama. If he didn't get injured, they were there. We're talking about a whole different team player here. I'm in on this price. Like this price is great. If right now, if you're in if you play college football or Devy or whatever, like get Quinn now because the way his price is, this is exactly what you do. I think he could be that QB3. And there showed flashes last year of talent. Like he has it. So I'm all aboard this price. At 204, that's a smash pick in terms of super flex where he's at. And if you're betting on the upside, I'll take that all day.
Yeah. Talent's insane with Ewers. I think he just needs to put it all together, get the timing right. I hope that offensive line is a little bit better. I think, but man, there's one throw. I think it was actually to Sanders. He's rolling to his left and he makes a Patrick Mahomes level throw. This kid has arm talent at the, but across his body, layers it over a linebacker and it's perfectly on the sideline for his tight end. If you can consistently do that and just get the pocket stuff down, yeah, QB3, probably top 10 pick.
Yeah. Oh, wait, I'm up. My bad. All right, I'm going to go. Forgot where I was at. I'm going to take Devin Neal, running back from Kansas. I've always kind of had a soft spot for Neal. He's one of those backs, though, that maybe could surprise you in terms of that. No one's watching him play because he plays at Kansas. Sorry, Kansas fans. No one watches you play. I know you had a good year last year. You fell off. But I think for me, Kansas runs a kind of this multiple offensive scheme, kind of like a triple option shotgun thing. It's really weird, but Neal has really done a very good job of just having explosiveness, kind of a gap scheme type guy, one cut and go. Doesn't get a ton of usage, right? But he's been pretty efficient. He had over 1,000 yards last year, under 200 carries. I think NFL teams will like him, his explosiveness in there. And to me, he kind of profiles like Tyjae Spears did this year, like a guy that's kind of on the outlier. He plays for a Power 5, though, but has that explosiveness that you like. I think he has both his ACLs. When you're looking at that, people will like that. Has a good receiving profile as well. I think Devin Neal has a pretty good receiving profile. Doesn't get, again, ton of usage in that offense in terms of what highlights him well, but he's a very highly touted recruit. He just went to Kansas. For whatever reason, he picked that in terms of where he's at. So we haven't seen a ton about him. But I do like Kansas. I do like Devin Neal. And he's just kind of that, I'll take him in the second round and hope he pops.
Yeah. Jeff, anything to say on Devin Neal?
He should transfer to Alabama, but or USC.
Yeah. All right, good transition. 206, Jace McClellan, the running back from Alabama. This is a kid that stepped up when Jahmyr Gibbs went down. I think that, much of the way too early Superflex mock drafts have, many of them have a lot of juniors and a lot of guys that still have remaining eligibility. And I think that's where we get caught is we get excited about a class that isn't really the true class. Jace McClellan is definitely going to declare the Senior Bowl. Jim Nagy already kind of said hey, we're inviting this kid. We've already watched him. We like inviting Alabama running backs. And so You're going to get the Senior Bowl bump from him. I think on film, he's got a ton to like. I think he's got good contact balance. He profiles as a guy that can be an early down guy. And I think, Alabama running backs tend to get day 2 capital at least. So I think here at 206, that's a no-brainer.
I like that pick. Can I just apologize to Jace McClellan's mom? I am sorry. All right. I know you don't like me. You yelled at me last year on Twitter because I said he might transfer. Listen, I like your son. I actually think he could really pop off. So if you watch the show, please leave us a 5-star review. But just know, I'm sorry. Okay. I know you follow me because you like tweets all the time that yell at me about Jace. I am on his train. I've liked him. It was just misquoted. I was misquoted, Mom. Okay. Sorry. All right, Jeff. Who you got at 206 or 207? Excuse me.
A crazy pick at 207, and this is really just a straight gamble. And I'm going to go with Kyle McCord. And Christian talked about we don't even know who's going to be in the class, and Kyle McCord might not even be in the class. But when you look at, he might not even be the starting quarterback for Ohio State, to be honest with you. But with the offensive system that is going to be there, with playing with Marvin Harrison Jr., playing with Emeka Ibuka, playing with Travion Henderson, with Ryan Day's development of the offense, and I think that teams are going to have now CJ Stroud in the NFL, and they're more comfortable with that system, more comfortable seeing him and projecting him going 102. I think, Kyle McCord is set up that if he is the starting quarterback, he could be vault up the boards. And so this is really just a late gamble in superflex. I mean, now certainly he doesn't have the athleticism and that, that fantasy quarterback skill set, but just a player that I think has everything is set up for him to position himself and force him way into this class, because you see top 10 lists of quarterbacks in the 2024 class and he's not on it. But I think the talent is there at the top end in terms of arm talent and those types of things.
McCord could have a Drake May type of year where he sits behind a really great quarterback. I think Sam Howell's great. Not everyone did, including the NFL, but he sits behind a great quarterback for a year, steps in and maybe shocks you with his athleticism a little bit. I've heard a few rumblings that sometimes McCord looks like a better athlete than Devin Brown, which is insane to me when you watch their high school film. So I like this pick, Jeff. I think he's got just as good a chance to be the QB3 as Quinn Ewers, honestly, if he decided to declare.
Yeah, I have no problem with this pick. I think we see Ohio State quarterbacks pop up all the time. That could definitely be it. So I like that pick there. All right, 208. So when we're looking at the 208, I think Jarquez Hunter, running back from Auburn. I don't think people really know too much about him here in terms of, he played behind Tank Bigsby, but Tank Bigsby earned day 2 draft capital. Hunter, analytically has looked very good. Versatile back, 668 yards last year. He's a receiver, a receiving profile. He's explosive athlete. Hugh Freeze came there, and whether you like Hugh Freeze or not, he does very good for his running backs. He that offense suits Hunter's skill set to a T. And we're going to see him kind of break off there. Some people have him as the top 5 running backs in college football right now. 247 Sports just released an article recently. He's somebody's stock that you could see rise in this class in that running back position.
Yeah, I love this pick. I've seen some rumblings that he has NFL teams have day 2 grades on him. So I think probably when we get down to it, if he has a big year, we're talking about him in the early second instead of right here.
Yeah.
209, Bryson Nesbitt, tight end, North Carolina. We're fitting 3 tight ends in this superflex mock, baby. This is the Drake May bump, right? Bryson Nesbitt's probably going to be one of Drake May's favorite targets this year, and with good reason. Very good receiver, was highly touted as a recruit, really good athlete, really nice movement skills, probably a better receiver than he is a blocker. But I think when you start to talk about, hey, which of these tight ends can get day 2 capital and then potentially be fantasy impact players, Nesbitt stands out to me as a guy that could absolutely vault up into top 75 range. Just his hands are so soft, and I think the volume is going to be pretty insane for him this year, personally. So,
yeah, I'm a Nesbitt guy. Yeah. I like Nesbitt. I think that he produced last year, and if you're looking for a tight end that's going to produce in May, that's a shot you take there.
All right, so at the 210, I took Blake Corum from Michigan, and we saw last year he was a player that a lot of people thought was going to be in the 2023 draft. Injured right at the end of last year, he wasn't going to be able to test, and with his size, I think that raises some questions when he kind of needs to test because he's a smaller back. But I think we were sitting around the 210 right now, and if he duplicates his production from last year, he's going to be flirting with top 5 all time Michigan rushing yards, and that means something to me. That if you're a top 5 running back in Michigan history, I mean that says a lot about your ability to produce. And as a guy that we see right now, kind of landing in this range of drafts, Chase Brown is a guy that's kind of landing in this range, and I think that there's some potential similarities between Corum and Chase Brown, where I think that he's going to get drafted, and I feel good about that. I'm not sure if it's going to be a day 2 back, but again, it's just kind of you're hoping for a situation at some points with running backs, and that's certainly what happened with Brown. But it's just that type of back that I think the NFL kind of tends to, as much as you can't really profile them to major roles, but the NFL kind of likes these guys.
Yeah, there's zero chance Blake Corum gets drafted day 2. I think, like, I don't see it. I would get an Ohio State tattoo on my body if he got drafted day 2. That's how.
I think he's going to be drafted day 2.
Yeah, I know. But I see it a lot. Like, a lot of people say he's the best running back in college football right now, and like there's a lot of stuff going out there. And I see from production standpoint, but I think you have to be very careful, especially if you play in Devy or whatever the case may be. Blake Corum is not a pick you make, because that is an outlier bet on an ADP that you don't do. And I think that's the thing I've been seeing a lot of. Like, I'm out. If you could sell him, I'm out. Like, that's what that case may be. And I'm a Michigan guy. I love Blake Corum. Donovan Edwards has way more upside in Blake Corum from an NFL standpoint.
Yeah. He looks like a 4th round pick to me, though, that a team is like, oh, we have a role for him. And I think how he was used at Michigan is not going to be how he's used at the NFL level, though. So we'll see. You're up.
All right. I'm up. My pick. I sniped Christian here with my last pick. Bucky Irving from Oregon. Oregon running back here. I like Bucky. He's he's kind of like Hunter in terms of like, hey, he's a smaller guy, so he's under 200, but hopefully he can kind of get that up. And he's like 194, so eat some Wheaties, do that. But he had one of the quietest 1,000-yard seasons of any running back last year. Very efficient. He had 1,058 yards on just 156 carries. Really thrived in that backfield that many thought was going to be a committee, but it turned into like, hey, Bucky Irving can be that guy. Overall, really good receiving profile, 31 catches, 209 yards, 3 touchdowns. I think from like his perspective, could have a huge year in that offense, and Oregon's offense gets him involved there. Bucky's one of those guys that at the late, you smash the late, second round here. I think he's a value. And I think that in this class of running backs, like this might be a hot take. It wouldn't shock me to see like Bucky Irving get better draft capital than like Will Shipley if they came out. Like in terms of like, hey, just because I think he profiles a little bit better. I think the size thing. But after seeing Devin O'Shane and these guys go, day 2, we could look at Bucky Irving and be like, oh, okay, I see Bucky's fitting that NFL roster.
Yeah, he's a guy that pops every time you watch the film. Like when I was studying Franklin, I couldn't help but watch Bucky. So I like this pick. I'm going to round out this draft, not with the quarterback that I like from this school, but with the wide receiver that I like, Jalen McMillan, slot wide receiver for Washington. I really flirted with taking Michael Penix Jr. here because I think there's a chance he gets this Hendon Hooker level bump, but also I'm not going to bet on that. Jalen McMillan, on the other hand, has produced fairly well. Really, really great athlete. I think his best role is as a slot, but he's got the size to potentially win outside. But aggressive hands, he's got a nice wide catch radius. Posted over 1,000 yards this last year. I think second year with this level of the offense, I think we're looking at probably close to 1,500 yards for him. It's a battle between him and Rome there for wide receiver 1, but I like McMillan's chances of being probably around 3 pick when all is said and done, if I had to guess.
In my opinion, Jalen McMillan is much better than Rome Odunze in terms of like NFL prospect. I think so.
Agreed.
And Rome's getting the buzz, and Jalen's kind of just get under the radar. Jalen is the guy that I want in that offense. And if from a Devy perspective, just from a college football NFL, it's Jalen, man. Jalen separates himself a little bit in terms of that. I think Rome's a little limited athletically. I think Jalen's not. I think Jalen's going to step up there, and I really. Pac-12 is gonna be fun to watch, boys. After dark, you guys got to stay up with me this summer or this fall and watch it with me. But I think when you're looking at that, but again, there's other guys on the board here that we definitely didn't go off. A guy like Alton McCaskill, he's transferring somewhere, in terms of running backs. Quarterback wise, there's some guys out there. We didn't even mention JJ McCarthy or anything like that. So there's some other there. Any guys out there that we didn't draft that you know of?
Oh, Nix, Michael Penix.
Okay.
Bo Nix is the one that I'm like, another big year. We could make it. We could make it into the back of the first. I'm intrigued.
To me, I think Bo is better NFL prospect than Michael Penix Jr. So that's how I would. I know you like Peanut. I know you like him.
I like them both. That's the problem.
Yeah.
That's why I didn't draft either of them.
You remember when you and me got some shit last year? Sorry, Joe, about like how we liked Bo. We thought he'd be pretty good in that Oregon system. And remember, we got some crap for that. And look at that. We were kind of right.
Yeah. And now those are two fantastic, probably top 10 teams when all is said and done. Yeah.
Yeah.
Love to see it.
Yeah, it's like we know what we're doing. All right, so hey, we hope you guys enjoyed like the mock. We love bringing it to you guys. We're definitely gonna have that as you're watching it. If you want to kind of get our more detailed takes as well in terms of writing, I know we're gonna have one dropping here at the site this week for you guys. So and always, like we said, make sure you subscribe, leave a comment for this, reach out to us if you're in a rookie draft, go get the rookie guide. I don't know why you're not. If you're a Football Guy subscriber, you should be downloading that right now. It is quite frankly, it's the most rewarding thing I've ever been able to do in the fantasy space, and it will help you win your league. And I think that's the key thing. It's why we make the content that we do for you guys. So go check that out. Now, next week we'll be back May 18th, 5 p.m. Eastern here on the YouTube channel. Make sure you like and subscribe before you leave. We appreciate you guys. I'm Kevin Coleman.
I'm Jeff Bell.
And I'm Christian Williams, and you just watched the Football Guys College Football Show.